Hello, I am Tiberius Dawnbringer. Welcome back to my channel. Today is today is very rainy, so not really going to be able to make a video outside today. So I figured since I'm pretty much stuck indoors today, I'd make a few more videos for you to enjoy. So today I'm going to start going over the other various tools that I use when I do Reiki sessions with people. And one that has actually come up earlier in this week with some other people I was talking to were pendulums. And the pendulum is a tool that I actually use on every session that I have, so it makes sense to talk about it. So that's what we're going to do today. So I actually have two pendulums that I have accumulated since I've started doing this kind of work. This one here, I'll call it the 7 chakra pendulum, because it has like 7 stones in it, one for each of the 7 chakras. And a cousin of mine gifted this to me about a year ago, and it's actually the one I use pretty much during all of my Reiki sessions. Since I mentioned the stones, I know the majority of these stones, but I'm not too familiar with all of them. I'm not entirely sure what this one down here is. I want to say garnet, but it's really a light color to be garnet. This I know is carnelian. That's for the sacral chakra. This is citrine for the solar plexus. This is moss agate. I'll try to get a little bit closer. You can tell by the white and clear spots within the green is how I notice if it's moss agate or not. This one is sodalite. This one I'm pretty sure is amethyst. It's a dark amethyst. And I want to also call this one amethyst as well. But you know, there's 2 different kinds of amethyst you'll see. One that's more clear and it's like a light purplish color to it, and then you'll see the ones that are like super dark, deep purple. The ones I've come across that are that dark purple usually come from Maraba, I think, or at least they're called Maraba amethyst. Anyways, so this is the one I usually use during my sessions, and I'll go ahead and show you my other one. I actually keep in a little leather pouch. This is actually the first pendulum I ever got when I started, studying this work and trying to get into these kind of tools. And come on out. I guess it's a little camera shy. Doesn't want to actually come out. There we go. So this is just a simple little silver chain, and this is a clear quartz pendulum. Very common wherever you go to actually look for them. But yeah, this is the very first one I got, and until I moved here to Maryland, which is when I received this other one, this is the one I used all the time. And I'll keep that one here because I might be using it later. But so when I do Reiki work, probably the very first thing I do is after the client lays down on my table, I will do like a scan, like a body scan, right? And what I use the pendulum for is to read the chakras themselves, starting at the crown chakra, and I'll just hang it over top and each chakra and see which way it moves. So if it rotates clockwise, then that tells me that that particular chakra is rotating properly. However, if it starts to rotate counterclockwise, that tells me that this chakra is counter-rotative and it needs work. There are times when I'll place this over a chakra and it will, like it's doing right now, it'll just go back and forth. Sometimes it'll get all wobbly, wonky on me, like it's going in each direction, and that's only happened a couple of times. But for me, if the pendulum and the chakra are not rotating properly, then that tells me that they need to receive healing work. So I'll focus on those chakras. But I will go down the body with each chakra from the crown all the way down to the root. And, if I go over one and it feels like it's not really giving me a clear reading, I'll come back to it. But other than that, I just do it the one time. And then from there, I'll determine how I want to proceed forward with the session. Usually from there, I will grab particular stones for those chakras, like the videos I've shown in the past, going over those particular stones associated with particular chakras, and I will pick out the ones that call to me. Like you could just feel it when you go to them. You're like, which ones am I going to use? And I can just kind of tell which one or ones that want to be used for this particular client. And so I'll grab those and I'll place them on particular parts of the body. Like if it's for the crown chakra, if there's enough space on a table, like the top of the table to where the top of their head is, I will put stones along there to work with the crown chakra. If it's third eye, I'll usually place it right on the forehead here, between the eyebrows. Usually I make sure when I'm getting third eye stones that they're flat or smooth, or they're of a shape that I know if I place them there, they're gonna sit there and not slip or roll off. Throat chakra, I usually place it right here. Heart right there. Solar, the sacral, I'll place it right under the belly button, depending on what stones I'm using, the physical shape of the person, several factors. If I feel like I can't just leave the stones there to sit on their own, then I'll kind of tuck them halfway underneath the belt loop part of the pants just to hold them. And for root chakra, I usually try to place the stones on their thighs somewhere smooth that looks like will hold the stones. But if not, you can always lay the stones right beside the body, if you're not comfortable doing that or placing them on the thighs, you could put them just right beside their hips or whatever, and it's still going to do the work. The energy from the stones will still do what they feel like they're going to do to help make the chakras rotate properly, get them back in balance and proper rotation. Okay, so that's what I do in the beginning. And at the end of the session, usually the 10 to 15 minute mark before the session's about to end, I'll grab this again and I will do the exact same thing, going from the crown down to the root and just checking them all. I've never had it to where any chakra that's already rotating properly has been anything but rotating properly after the fact. If it did, I'd be a little concerned, because that means that I was doing something wrong probably, and so that's just odd to me. But I will go over it, each chakra again, paying most of my attention to the ones that I was working on, and most of the time they're rotating properly. If for some reason they're not rotating all the way, or if they're still off for some reason, then I'll take that extra 10 minutes I have left and try to work on them some more, doing something else. Maybe using tuning forks, which I'm going to make a video on later on today probably. But yes, just something else, maybe even different stones. I'll bring in stones I didn't use and see if their energy will help out, and I'll just focus more on those chakras, and then I'll come back to it real quick. But if I have to do it a third time, I'm only going to focus on the one or two that were still kind of off kilter. But so far, in the several years that I've been doing this work, when I get done, all the chakras have been rotating just fine. So that's the only thing I use pendulums for, is with that particular kind of work. Another thing I could use it for is if I'm sensing that there's something wrong in a particular part of the body, like there's a pain or discomfort, and I can't pick up on it, then I might ask the pendulum, or my intuition, whichever one works. If there is something, I'll ask it to help me find it. So I'll start going to certain parts of the body, and I'll place this over certain parts of the body, and if it starts spinning, that's giving me confirmation that there's something there that needs some attention. And that's another way I can find out something to focus on while I'm doing my Reiki work. So that kind of leads me to the next part of this topic, is that other people, you can actually use pendulums for divination purposes, and if that's what you feel drawn to do, then fine, that's perfectly okay to do that. I tried doing that myself, and I eventually stopped doing it, which I'll get into near the end of the video. But you can use pendulums for divination purposes, and most stories I hear about people using pendulums is for that purpose. So let's see. Okay, so let's say from the beginning, you decide that you want to actually start working with a pendulum, right? Alright, so obviously you would go somewhere like any holistic store near your area. The majority of them should sell even a few different kinds of pendulums. Most places I go to, they'll have like a whole rack that's nothing but like all these different pendulums, and I've seen pendulums of just about every stone I've ever known to exist, right? And there's even ones, I don't have one, but there's like a 7 chakra one where usually it's shaped kind of like this, but like the top portion will be like some purple stone like amethyst, and then the next part will be like something that was blue or lapis lazuli, and it's split into like 7 different colors all the way down, and each color, excuse me, is like a rainbow color of the 7 chakras, right? But anyways, and I think I mentioned this in a previous video, where they have ones that are like this like a copper or brass metal cylinder. Some of them I've seen has like a glass casing on the outside to where you can look inside, but others are just solid metal all the way through. And I found out that you can actually like twist them open, and there's like a small cylinder compartment inside of it. And what I've known people to do is they'll take like, okay, selenite, right? Selenite breaks apart very easily, and you have all these like chunks and pieces, right? But they would fit inside of the pendulum, the alcove of the pendulum. And there's other stones that sometimes people will just find like tiny pieces of them somewhere, but they'll be enough to fit in there. And it's just a way to add like the power and the property of those particular stones to your pendulum as well. So that's another idea. But anyways, whatever you end up doing, when you get your pendulum and you get home, the first thing you want to do is cleanse it. Because chances are you are not the first person to pick up that pendulum looking at it or whatever. And what we don't realize is when we touch things, or when we even walk into a space like a room, we're actually leaving an energetic imprint of ourselves in some way wherever we go or with whatever we touch. And even thoughts. If we think hard enough towards someone or something, we can leave an energetic imprint that way. And we as humans don't know that because you're not exactly taught those kinds of things in school, and this is information that for me has only really started becoming mainstream in like the last 5 to 10 years, even though this kind of knowledge has existed for hundreds or thousands of years. It's always been like taboo and not talked about and that kind of stuff. But now it's pretty much an open topic everywhere you go, so which is awesome. So anyways, go home, cleanse this. I would use something like just something simple, sage, Palo Santo. If you don't have any of that, you can just hold it under running water and set the intention that, like, as the water washes over the stone, it's washing away any negative or dense or unwanted energy that you don't want attached to it. Because if you leave that kind of energy attached to it, it can influence the pendulum itself and can eventually start affecting you, depending on how trained or how sensitive you are to this kind of work. So, the store I used to work for, what we would do is when people would get like particular stones or get a pendulum or something like that, we would offer to cleanse it for them before they left the store. I wouldn't be surprised if other places did that. I haven't been to another place that does that around here, at least. So that's an interesting additional, thing to offer your customers when they're purchasing things like this. And so anyways, so first thing you do is you cleanse it. All right, it's cleansed. Good, done. Next, you would want to program it, which is also part of attuning it to you. You want the pendulum to be attuned to your energetic field, to your frequency, to just you, right? Because it's your tool. It's going to be working for you, not anyone else. All right, you don't want anyone else having their energy influence it, because that's just not the point of this. It's your tool to use for your own purposes. So what you can do is just, it's the same thing as if you're going to cleanse any other stone. Like, I have stones set aside here. You get stones, you cleanse them. Even if it's from a trustworthy source, you don't know who's held these before it got there, right? People pack these things up and they ship them out from stores or factories or warehouses or whatever, and then they just ship them out to people. You don't know the dozens of people that have held that stone from then or even before then to when you acquire it. That's all that energy you have to deal with, right? Like, those people could be having a bad day, a bad week, a bad life. That person's wife might be trying to divorce them, their girlfriend or whatever, or vice versa. They might have lost their kids in court the day before, and I don't know. Maybe some family member died. They're just having a very rough time. That energy is going from them into the things that they touch, like I mentioned earlier, energetic imprints. So even if you're getting these stones from a place you might frequent, and you like their stuff, and you like their store, and everything's awesome there, just to be on the safe side, go ahead and cleanse it for yourself, just for peace of mind, if anything. Okay? Yeah, and that goes for stones, that goes for pendulums, pretty much that goes for anything. Even if it's from like a JCPenney or something. Say you buy clothes or shoes or something from some store, nothing is wrong with you cleansing them. Who knows what kind of energy is on them? You don't know where they've been until you get them. So with pendulums and stones, you would place them in your hand with the intention of programming them and or attuning them to you. So it could be something as simple as, like, you just hold it in your hand while you're meditating, and You think, you know, I'm going to use this pendulum for the purposes of divination. I want it to be attuned to me. I want it to, you know, only give me the most accurate of answers that best serves my highest good. Or, you know, set the intention that it will only be attuned to you, that no one else's energy will affect or influence it, that no outside entities will do the same thing, and just sit with it until you feel like the programming has kicked in, has been set into the stone. Because the thing about crystals, especially quartz crystals, but most crystals, they actually do hold memory. It's kind of like a computer chip or a computer program. If you erase it, what it had before, and you input a new one and set it, that's what the program is going to have. That's why we refer to it as programming the stones. Okay? So you do that. You program it, and then just take time to hold it on you before you even start using it. Like, I wouldn't use it for like a couple of days. What I would do is I would, like a leather pouch, right? I'd put this in the leather pouch and I'd carry it around with me. I just have it on my person so it attunes itself to me over time. And the reason why you want it to be attuned to you, other than the fact that, you know, you're going to be the one using it, is so when you try to use it, and let's say, like, this is uncommon, but let's say that there's some outside force or entity that's trying to influence your readings. Say you're doing it for divination purposes, or even if you'd use it for what I use it for, like I'm trying to read this client of mine, read their chakras, and let's say some jerk that knows the person for some weird reason wants to come in and try to mess it all up and give me false readings. You know, that could potentially happen. I'm not concerned about it because I know enough to prevent things like that from happening. And like I said, to me, it's not that common of occurrence for people or other entities to come in and try to mess with a reading like that. But it has happened enough to where it's worth mentioning. If you're someone who's concerned about that, usually if it's an outside person trying to influence your reading, to me that would be more like a psychic thing. They would psychically be trying to influence the reading of your pendulum. Then if you're concerned about that happening, why not get a pendulum like any of the black stone pendulums, black tourmaline, obsidian, onyx, just to name a few. Because if you remember my video that I did with root chakra stones, most of the black ones were good for protecting against psychic attacks and such. You know, and some of the third eye and crown stones are also good for that as well, especially third eye, because most of your psychic abilities tend to originate from the third eye. Excuse me. So, yeah, there you go. But for me, I'm not worried about those kinds of things. I do not fear it. I'm not saying it hasn't happened. I honestly don't know if it has or hasn't, but I just don't live in that level of fear, because there's no point in living in that level of fear. Fear will influence your readings as well. You can actually get in the way of your own readings, your thoughts, your whatever's like. But I'll get more into that in a little bit. So, let's see. So I'll go over a couple of things before I actually do like a small demonstration, because I actually have a mat here that I'll show you in a second. One, a lot of people, like if you go on YouTube and look up videos about this kind of stuff, a lot of people, at least some of the videos I watched when I first got into it, would talk about how you cannot ever let someone else touch your pendulum, because as soon as they do, no matter what their intentions are, no matter how good or bad they are, it's going to corrupt your stone or your pendulum to where you can't use it anymore, ever again. Some people even say that you can never again use it. I am here to tell you that that is absolutely not true. None of that is true, okay? If you believe it's true, then yeah, it's going to become true, because we create our own realities. Our belief system, makes the reality we exist in. So if you fall for that and you actually start believing it, then yeah, it will happen. But me, I know better than that, okay? So if someone else touches your pendulum, so what? It's just like, like, oh, I hand someone my keys and they hand it back. That's not going to make the keys not work for my car, right? All right, okay, maybe that was a little silly. But anyways, if the only thing that would really happen is if someone else tried to use your pendulum that you programmed to be used only by you, that you attuned it just to yourself, if they try to use it, it's not going to work for them, or at least it's not going to be accurate. It's just going to give them, if anything, it's going to give them a bunch of gibberish. It's not going to be accurate at all. It might give one or two, who knows, but if anything, that's just like, it's doing that to intentionally lead to misleading, because the pendulum is obeying its program. It's not meant to be used by that person. So if someone wants a divination reading from you, that's different. They ask the questions, or they tell you what the questions are that they want, and then you can ask the questions to the pendulum. Or I've even done this before, where a couple of things. One, I've done it where it's been pendulum, I will allow this person to ask the questions, and you may respond to them as if you were responding to me, right? They're not touching it or anything, they're just asking the questions, and the pendulum will still swing for them because it's still being used by you. You're essentially giving permission for them to ask and receive. Another way of doing it is, there's questions that people don't want to ask out loud, privacy and all that. You want to respect that. So what you can do is have it to where you tell the person that, hey, if there's questions you don't want to ask out loud, think them and project, like visualize yourself projecting the question that you want to ask to the pendulum, and it will connect. The pendulum will pick it up, and the pendulum will respond to that question. Okay? So that's several ways of doing it. But anyways, what a lot of people would do, if you don't have a mat, which I'm about to get into, a lot of people, I would just recommend sticking to yes or no questions. Okay? If you need more detail than that, you have to be creative. You have to get a piece of paper and be like, I want to know how many of this, that, or the other, and you write down numbers like 1 to 0 and do that, or it's like, I would like to know the person's name. You can write down the letters on a piece of paper of the alphabet and just kind of go over it like that, or whatever, but if you're going to ask more in-depth questions rather than yes or no, a tool that a lot of people like to use are these kinds of divination mats, right? And I actually just got this one recently, okay? And to be honest, I've been eyeing this one for months at the store I got it from, because it's green, it's Celtic, it reminds me of druid kind of stuff, and you know how I love that kind of stuff. So I'm going to try to do now is I'm going to shift the camera to hopefully where we can actually see it well enough without the camera shutting off. Okay, so there you go. So you can see here is both sides is no, left and right is yes. Let's see, these corners are maybe, and these corners are rephrase. Like if you get that, it's like you need to, rephrase the question that you asked so it better understands. On this particular mat, I have the numbers here that go from 1 to 0, and you have the letters of the alphabet on the outer edge right there. Okay? Some places, some mats I've seen, they'll have the months of the year written down. Some, I've seen one where it had astrological names written down as well. But there's only so much space, a finite amount of space, so usually this is a generic layout. Is yes, no, maybe so, numbers, letters. You should pretty much be able to get what you need just from that, right? So now I don't know why mats do this, because if I want a yes answer, then the pendulum is going to go back and forth like that. Because when you say yes, you nod your head back and forth. When you say no, then you shake your head side to side. So when I'm not using a mat, that's how I generally get the answers to yes and no questions. But for the purpose of this mat, and I'm already, notifying the pendulum that, hey, for this demonstration, we're going to go off of the mat itself. So if I ask the stone, using this mat, show me which way is no. And it's already responding. Yes. And the more you practice with these things, the quicker they will respond. So say yes. Okay, so it understands that we're answering things based off of this. Alright, I'm not going to actually ask any questions. I'm just really giving a demonstration of, say, you ask something that requires like a numeric value, like are there going to be 5, 10, or 12 people at my shop tomorrow when I open up? Okay, then, well, first what you would want to do is, can you give me a number of how many clients I will have tomorrow? Okay, yes. Is it of a numeric value that's bigger than 1 digit? Okay, the answer is no. So from there, you could just kind of hang it over each number. Okay? And once it starts actually spinning, which I'm not stopping it because I'm not actually asking a question, but let's say if I got over top of number 6 and it actually starts spinning, then that's pretty much it telling you that, hey, you're going to have 6 clients tomorrow. Alright, cool. But if you ask the question like, is it going to be in the double digits, and it says yes, then you're going to be looking for 2 numbers. So you would go over it until it spun around 1 number. Let's say start spinning around 3, so you know that the first digit is 3, and then you start over again, and let's say the next digit is 1, so the second digit is 1, so your number is 31. 31 clients is a lot of clients. At least for me, that would be way too much, but who knows, whatever your business might be. If you're looking for a name of someone in particular, or a place, some place in particular, something along those lines, are you going to spend all day just going over each letter until it stops spinning? A quicker way of doing that would be the same thing. It's like, can you give me a number of how many letters is in this word? And then ask if it's single digit or if it's double digit, and so forth. So you have an idea of how many letters you're looking for, and then you start doing it individually. Depending on how big the name is, it's going to take some time, obviously. But that's another way of doing it. Okay? Excuse me. So that's a pretty basic, generic layout of how those kind of mats work. Hi, welcome back. I'm going to put this down now. I mentioned earlier, because I'm going to finish this video up, because we're already over 30 minutes, and that's just me, I guess. Whatever. My videos last a while. So, what was I saying? Oh, I do not use pendulums for divination purposes anymore. There was a time when I did, and to be perfectly honest, it became an addiction for me. I was to the point where I'd wake up, the beginning of the day, and I'd start having questions. I'd be like, am I doing this today? Am I doing that today? What should I be doing? Is this person interested in me? Should I try to talk to this person? What should I eat? I mean, that seems a little ridiculous, but I'm just trying to give examples. Like, I would literally wake up and be like, I have questions, and start asking questions. And on multiple occasions, I had to stop using my pendulum because I realized it was giving me inaccurate information or contradicting itself on quite a few occasions. Now, I'm not saying that it was totally inaccurate. I've had as much, if not maybe a little bit more accurate information as I've had inaccurate information. But I realize now the reason why was because I was using it way too much for that purpose. It's not meant to be used that often for divination purposes. Any kind of modality you use for the purpose of divination, you want to use it, I don't want to say sparingly, but you want to use it only when you need to use it. Only when you're called to use it. When you're using it like every day or every hour, you're just messing up the energy to where it's not going to work properly for you all the time. Okay? So, yeah, when it would get to the point where it would start contradicting itself and I would catch it. I even tried doing something like telling it, it's like, you're only going to give me accurate information. You're not going to tell me what I want to hear. You're going to tell me what is the truth. And even that, to a point, ended up not working. And I realized what was happening was I was influencing the answers. I was having it tell me what I wanted to hear, even when I told it not to tell me what I wanted to hear, but to only give me the truth. On some small level, my energetic field was influencing the answers. Okay? And it's because it would take a lot of discipline that I did not have and probably still don't have to be able to ask questions about yourself or that pertains to you without it being manipulated in some way by you. You might hear people say that when you decide to do this, when you're using a pendulum for divination purposes, that you don't want to use it for anyone you know, right? You don't want to do it for family members. You don't want to do it for friends, particularly close friends. You certainly don't want to do it for significant others or whatever. And you don't want to do it for yourself. Why? Because you have those kind of energetic attachments to those people. On some level, you have that energetic attachment and you have some kind of investment in these people. So, like I was giving the example of with me, I was getting all these misinformation because it was me. I was invested heavily in myself. I wanted it to say this and to say that, and it did, or it gave me something that wasn't accurate. It wasn't the true answer. So if you're doing it for someone else, someone you like, someone you care about, that could influence the answers you get. What if, let's say, you're a woman doing this and a guy comes to you, a guy that you like, and he's asking you, he's wanting to ask questions about someone else that he likes, right? Well, you like this person, you don't want this person to like the other person, you want them to like you, right? So it leaves that potentiality for the pendulum reading to become, influenced by you, because it's going to respond to you, right? So it's going to probably tell this guy, oh no, this person doesn't like you, blah blah blah. It's like, well, who does like me? And then you're going to kind of influence it to where it's telling them that it's you, which, to be perfectly honest, like, that's lacking integrity in this kind of work. You don't want to manipulate things in that way. You want everything to always be coming from a place of truth, no matter how much it hurts your heart or your feelings. That's just the way it is. So it's just best that if you're going to get into this, divination work with pendulums, you're going to only use it with people that you don't know. Like if you have a business or that becomes part of your business, it's okay to only use it when somebody comes in and asks specifically for it, when they request a pendulum reading. Then you could totally do it because you have nothing invested in them. You don't know them. There's no energetic connection. So there should be no influencing from either party in that fact. Okay? I believe that's pretty much it for pendulums and divination and so forth and so on. Alright? So, if you're watching this still, I appreciate you being here. I hope you got something from this. I hope you enjoyed this video. And I'm going to keep making them because I know that there are people out there looking for these kinds of answers. And I enjoy being able to speak my truth, and I enjoy the idea of people actually wanting to actually listen to me. And for that I have gratitude in all things. So Y'all have a great day, and I will see you in the next one.